Y'all should be really fired up, and I'm glad that Sue Birch broke the news, because if she didn't, I was going to have to do it myself after talking to Mark Williams from HCPF. Not to contradict my boss's numbers, but more than 400,000 people we're talking about now, because Medicaid has continued to sign people up for open enrollment. Medicaid never closes, so they've signed up tens of thousands more since everybody thought open enrollment closed for the exchange. How does it feel to have signed up more than 400,000 people for health insurance? It should feel pretty great for all of you. You should give yourselves a big round of applause. The reason it's important is because every single one of those people, of those 400,000, is a victory. Certainly a victory for them, getting health coverage they didn't have before, but a victory for people who've been working on health reform in Colorado and across the country for decades and not getting as far as they wanted to get. And then in this past year, to drive the number of uninsured in Colorado down as far as you have, and hopefully will keep continuing to do over the next few months, is truly an amazing thing. And what we've tried to do is try to tell a few of those individual stories, and we'll tell more of them in the next year. Some of their stories hang out in the hallway that you passed as you came down here. People like Juanita Timberman, who stands at a beauty salon chair all day long, and for a long time with a damaged hip that she couldn't get repaired because she's not at Medicare age yet. And then because somebody helped her sign up for the Affordable Care Act, is able to get surgery, is able to get that hip fixed, is able to continue working, and then will transition to Medicare. When she's on Medicare, her cases will cost a lot less for the whole country than it would have otherwise, because she was able to get that care. And so we're trying to tell more and more of those stories, and we'll be doing that this afternoon in the storytelling sessions. And so we wanted you to have some of that information, as Annie said, take home that information with you and do an even better job and do an even more detailed job than we were able to do in the last year. But we also wanted to bring you some inspiration for the next few months, because there's a lot of hard work ahead. The computers are not going to work, sorry to say, every second of every day perfectly. There will be frustration with that. There will be confusion. There will be people who are resisting getting coverage that you know is going to be good for them. And it's frustrating, I'm sure, to not have them say yes. And so we also wanted to bring you some things for your own health and well-being. We considered a few different ideas. One of them was to lock all the doors and give everybody flu shots. We didn't think that would go over very well. So we decided to work on mental health instead. And so in mental health, we're going to work on inspiration and enthusiasm. And our next speaker, Amanda Boxtel, brings that everywhere she goes by the truckload, as you'll see. Amanda's life 22 years ago was upended, turned upside down, as she'll talk about. 4 years ago, and not so much by coincidence, the same year that the Affordable Care Act was signed in 2010, she stood tall again in a way that truly astonished the world, and I think will astonish you as well. And so we wanted to bring her story and have her bring that story to you as part of the inspiration that you'll need over the next few months. Over the next few months, the computers won't work perfectly every time. Come December, we can't predict exactly what Congress is going to do. We can't guarantee that that person you've been trying to reach for 3 months, who you know needs care or needs coverage, will finally return your phone calls. But we can guarantee that after listening to Amanda, you'll find more meaning in what you do. And if you don't, we have a few doctors in the audience who have volunteered to check your pulse. So, without further ado, I introduce Amanda Boxtel from Basalt, Colorado.
Thank you. While my accent is Australian, I'm a Colorado girl at heart. I've been here for more than 25 years, so I think I'm a local by now. I'm here, and I drove down through the beautiful colors. And fall is really, really important to me. It's a gorgeous time of year. The leaves shimmer, and it's almost as if it's a second spring. A second spring in the sense that it's almost like flowers are turning toward the solar rays of the sun. But it's been a second spring for me too, because just 39 days ago, I underwent a major spinal surgery. I had to deal with some chronic pain and to restabilize my spine. And this is a fairly graphic image, I know. But I feel like it's my second awakening this year, my second spring. I was humbled. I was reminded of my 24-year-old self. And I had post-traumatic stress disorder. I had these horrific memories flooding my entire being, reminding me of how hard it was when I was paralyzed 22 years ago, and the obstacles that I had to surmount, I had to overcome. And it wasn't easy. Just 39 days ago, I had to have two blood transfusions. My blood count went way down. I was vomiting profusely. I don't do well to anesthesia. I couldn't roll in bed. I was reminded of the simple things and how difficult it was. I had to do log rolls, and I still do today. Every 2 hours, to just transfer onto the toilet. Simple daily functioning became a real challenge. And I thought, my goodness, I'm 46 years old. How did I do it? And I think because I'm older in my body now, 22 years later, it is more difficult. Yet I promised Michael and the organizers of this event that I would show up today, despite my surgery, despite it being just 5.5 weeks ago. And here I am. And I gotta say that this is so not sexy. This is a back brace, and this looks better, doesn't it? But anyway, I've got to do it because I'm authentic. I'm transparent, and I'm wearing my back brace because it gives me stability. My spine was cut, those muscles were cut, and now I have the wobbles. But it's okay because I'm pain-free, and I have a better quality of life. And I got really good insurance before this surgery. Because this surgery is far greater than $100,000. Disability, ladies and gentlemen, is a part of the human condition. Do you know that nearly every one of us in our lifetime is going to experience some type of temporary or permanent disability? Every one of us. And if we're lucky enough to grow old, we're going to feel what it's like to have a mobility impairment. We're going to feel our bodies slowing down, and we might need assistive equipment. There's 6.8 million people, community resident Americans, that use assistive devices for mobility. 1.7 million use wheelchairs or scooter riders. 6.1 million use crutches, canes, or walkers. So assistive devices are really necessary, and they're prevalent. So it speaks to us looking at rehabilitation and the necessity to provide for it and make it affordable and available to every person. The wheelchair was and is the universal symbol for disability. It defines us. Does it define me? Do I allow it to define me? What defines you? I'm inherently labeled as being disabled. But I just presented to a bunch of third graders a few weeks ago, and actually a couple of months ago, and they just called me Bionic Amanda, and they said, amazing Amanda. They used all of these different adjectives, and it's like, The word disabled wasn't even in their vocabulary. It's like, woohoo! I wasn't perceived as being disabled in their eyes. And so I live by that. I live toward moving beyond that to my full self and who I can be. It was 24 years ago that I was rendered a paraplegic. But I have a whole new vision now. And that vision takes me from being a passive consumer to an active co-creator of my health care. No longer am I a victim of my circumstance. I'm able to remove self-imposed limitations and to take responsibility for choosing my own path. Yes, my future has changed. And I often say some journeys choose us, and some journeys we choose ourselves. And I'm choosing to take responsibility for this journey, for this. It doesn't define me. Does that make sense? I was 24 years old. I felt invincible, unconquerable. Yes, I was an aerobic dancer. I was the athletics captain of my school. And I was a long jumper, a sprinter. It was in the 80s and I had big hair. I was a skier. And I felt alive, unconquerable, as if I could do anything. But that changed in a split second. It was a moment in time while I was downhill skiing when I shattered 4 vertebrae. I also shattered the illusions of my own immortality. It took just a split second. And that's how fast it can happen. There is no guarantee what the next moment will bring, ladies and gentlemen. I thought when I was a teenager that I would be married with children at the age of 26 and a great artist. Well, I still do art. I'm not married. I don't have children. I'm in a wheelchair. I'm living in Colorado. And I walk in a robot. Who would have thought? It was a snowy day on February 27th, 1992. I rode the chairlift. I looked out at the view as though I was looking for the last time. A wave swept through my body. And I skied down on purpose as if to remain visible. And I stopped again on the flats. And I looked out at the view. I just took off, and from me to you, the lady in the pink, that's how far it was. I crossed my tips. I did a somersault. And bam. Ski patrol came. They uncrumpled my body. They transported me onto a toboggan and took me down the hill. I was flown on a flight for life to St. Anthony's Central. And just a few weeks later, a young doctor, his face screamed medical student. His face was younger than mine. He had been sent to deliver the bad news. And he said, "Amanda, you'll never walk again." But as if to shed light on the situation, he said, "You can still have children." And who cared? Who cared about that at that moment? Those words, "you'll never walk again," resounded in every cell of my being. I became determined to prove him wrong, the doctor and the guy upstairs. I wanted to walk out of those hospital doors. And I knew I had this uncanny insight that at some point in my lifetime, my legs would support me and that I would walk again. I still have that feeling. I just didn't know how. I embraced my life. I learned how to kayak, to hand cycle, paraglide, hang glide. I learned how to do all of those wonderful things that really brought life to my spirit, rejuvenated me. And while my heart grieved for what it had lost, my spirit rejoiced for everything it had left. I finally understood the power of acceptance and hope. It's, Amanda, you accept this moment, right here, right now. And you appreciate everything that your body is. You're not just a half a woman, you're very much a whole woman. And I don't know what tomorrow will bring. So I understood that acceptance and hope was a dance. They can and they must coexist. I prepared my body today for what could bring me tomorrow. And that's what I encourage you to go out to the world and do. Prepare for today for what tomorrow might bring, because we don't know. And we can learn from every situation, whether it's a tragedy or a euphoric moment or a thunderbolt from a calm sky. Everything has positive value. I learned that my body is the harp to my soul. It is mine to bring forth from it sweet music or confused sounds. Thank you. So that's how I choose to live my life. You're getting a little glimpse into Amanda Boxtel and the adventurer that I am. No bird soars too high if he soars with his own wings. I always wondered, well, what would it be like to walk again? I never let go of that yearning, of that dream. So let me paint a vision for you. What if any person with any musculoskeletal challenge could have complete freedom of mobility? And let's take it a step further. What if it's not only complete freedom of mobility, but the wearable technology that they donned could fit them seamlessly like a glove and almost become an extension of their senses? I am really grateful to be paralyzed in this day and age. And I think it's going to grow exponentially in the next 10 to 20 years. We're going to see the confluence of technologies that are going to help any individual with the musculoskeletal challenge to get up and walk again and have life to their limbs. It's going to be a combination of robotics, of 3D printing, smart technologies, non-invasive neural interfaces, nanotechnology. These things will converge and bring us closer to biology fusing with technology, or man and machine. What if? I think it's possible, and we're living in the day and age where this is just the beginning. We're in a new era where augmenting human potential is right within our reach. It's within our grasp. I knew that if I didn't move my body, I would lose it. Destiny waits for no man or woman. It was up to me, and me only, to be able to get in charge of my life, to move my body. And so I did everything I could. I researched, and I understood that when I moved my body, I felt alive. There's proof this year that with technology and scientific articles that are coming out that show that the spinal cord is as smart as the brain. It has a memory. It can rewire. It can send signals back to the brain to show how the muscles can work and refire. It's as malleable as the brain. Dr. Reggie Edgerton from UCLA says that the spinal cord is smart. The neural networks in the lumbosacral spinal cord are capable of initiating full weight bearing and relatively coordinated stepping without any input from the brain. This is possible in part due to information that is sent back from the legs to the spinal cord. The spinal cord can independently interpret data and send movement instructions back to the legs, all without cortical involvement. I visited this doctor at UCLA. Dr. Susan Hakama, who is doing some research with epidural stimulators below the lesion, has discovered that there's firings from the brain through the spinal cord down to the toes. Voluntary movements. As you sit there, pick up your right leg. Pick up your right leg. Do it for me now. And now, keep the left leg on the floor and wiggle the big toe on the left leg. The big toe on the left foot. Keep the right leg picked up. Okay, you can do that, right? I can't. Okay, relax. So the question is, how does the signal from the brain go down through the spinal cord to make that toe on the left foot wiggle while you're holding the right leg up? The bigger question is can paralysis be reversed? It's really interesting because now physical therapists are being trained to work with a spinal cord injured patient or someone who has lower extremity weakness below their level of lesion, below their level of injury, to work all the body. So we look at the body as a whole, not in parts. And Susan Hakama says there are treatments like locomotor training that all people with paralysis can benefit from, even years after the injury. So I learned that I had to exercise. I was a radical stem cell tourist. I went to India for 3 years consistently. 7 different treatments, ladies and gentlemen, and I witnessed my body coming alive. Yes, I've got, this might be ugly because, you know, I've just had surgery and, and it's rudimentary, but I'm able to kind of, move my legs a little bit. Hold on. You know, not so much. There you go. Hold on. I'm not doing very well. There you go. So anyway, you can see a little bit of movement there, but I never had movement below my injury for 16 and a half years. I went to India. I regained trace muscles in my quads, hamstrings, glutes, proud owners of flickers of abductors and adductors. I'm able to pee on my own, ladies and gentlemen, and that's a big deal. But that wasn't enough. It's not enough because I'm not up and walking, and I still yearned to be on my legs and to stand up tall. And so I tried an anti-gravity treadmill. 3 things weren't working. It was, when I walked on this treadmill, it was sloppy. I moved like a drunkard. It wasn't pretty. And 3 things weren't working. I wasn't walking in perfect biomechanical alignment. I wasn't fully weight-bearing on my legs. And the 3rd thing, I wasn't walking, this is what happens when we're on a treadmill, I wasn't walking with the world going by me. So I wasn't getting the proprioceptive feedback and the visual cues with the world going by me. I started imagining, well, what could I do to get myself up and walking again? I thought of an avatar, and then the movie came out. I thought of, well, and this speaks to the power of intentionality. I saw myself walking in a device that encased me and gave me a hug and fit me seamlessly. And then I received a phone call that would change my life. What is an exoskeleton? Well, it requires the internal frame, the muscles, the sensors, all to interact together to work with technology. So it's biology working and fusing with technology. So look at the internal skeleton, the endoskeleton. And then we have a robot. It has an outer shell, a skeleton, that resembles the internal bone structure. It also has 6 joints, 4 motors, a computer, just like the brain. It has 2 batteries. The motors are very similar to the muscles that power me up and help me stand and take steps. The sensors are like my nerves. They send signals to the computer like my brain. And they help me initiate and take a step. So this is what a bionic exoskeleton suit is. There's several on the market. So the prevalence brings validity to this technology. And do you know that way back in 1887, this congressionalist, and this quote hangs over Congress today on Capitol Hill, he said, "He that invents a machine augments the power of a man and the well-being of mankind." And to give you a little history of the bionic exoskeleton suit, so I can move forward really fast. But it was way back in 1890 that the very first drawings were crafted by a Russian. And then it wasn't until 1861 that this incredibly clunky, hardy man, 1,500-pound suit was designed to carry 1,500 pounds. And it was designed by GE. And then it wasn't until more recently that with the military and DARPA that we were able to fund exoskeletons to augment human potential. But when was that impractical barrier broken? It wasn't until 2004 that that impractical barrier was broken and we were able to shift toward a medical application that could help someone paralyzed to stand up and walk again. So, ladies and gentlemen, no longer will we hear those words from a doctor, "You'll never walk again." But instead, he'll say, or she, "Well, sure, yes you can, it'll just be a little different. Let's show you how." Thank you. It's quite exhilarating standing up here, and while you're all sitting and I'm standing, it's a nice role reversal. When I walk, it's definitely emotional. I always have this euphoria that just sweeps over me. But it's physical too. It's beyond the psychosocial. I feel better in my body. I feel as if a veil has been lifted from my head and I can think sharply and clearly. My digestive system works really well. I'm going to go to the bathroom after this presentation. It gets things moving. Our bodies are meant to be moving, ladies and gentlemen. When we sit, we begin to die. Our organs are meant to be hanging and moving with us through space fluidly. I suffer from horrible edema. Can you see my ankles? They're a little, they're cankles, I think. And I also have poor circulation. So when someone sustains a chronic injury such as this, we're prone to joint contractures, to muscle atrophy, to osteoporosis, to secondary complications. Wouldn't it be a beautiful thing if every person that was paralyzed had the opportunity to stand up as I am right now, to feel the tallness of their body, and to walk? Why not? Why can't this happen? The technology is here, ladies and gentlemen. It's available to us. And the most beautiful thing is that for 22 years, I've had chronic nerve pain. Sometimes it's off the charts. From a scale of 1 to 10, it's an 11. And right now, I don't have any pain. When I walk, I don't have any pain, ladies and gentlemen. It's a beautiful thing. Thank you. And so, let me just share with you that the technology is advancing dramatically. We now have exoskeletons that have non-invasive neural interfaces where someone can wear a cap and it can be thought activated. But not only is it thought activated, sensors from the robot, from the exoskeleton, then send signals back to the brain, so there's a loop happening. So it's a brain-machine brain interface. But what does the technology look like beyond this, beyond what I'm wearing and what you're seeing right now? Imagine, I'm a girl. I like fashion. I still shop for shoes. I still like to look sexy. And I really miss wearing high heels, so maybe there'll be a robot that has high heels one day. And I love feeling a long skirt swish around my ankles. My wheelchair's great, but it has its limitations. I want to interact eye to eye. Well, I love, love, love this robot. What if it could be really sexy like a sports car that I could don and I could strut my stuff? Why not? And what if I could be an integral part of the process, a co-creator of the design itself, where it fit my body seamlessly like a glove? The combination of 3D printing with robotics takes us to new and unimaginable frontiers. I was involved with the first design of the first 3D printed exoskeleton in the world. They scanned my body in a not so attractive unitard. I'm glad I don't have to wear that in front of you today. And then those images were cast onto a computer screen. And these designs were made. They were made to fit my body seamlessly. It wrapped, the spinal part wrapped around my kidneys. So everything white that you see on this device has been 3D printed, laser printed and template driven. The material is robust, super lightweight, and affordable. So imagine what it's going to do to the design of this device. It's also breathable, and it resembles my musculature. So no longer am I sweating profusely in this device, but it fits me and it's minimalistic. So just like my wheelchair, we want to see more of Amanda, less wheelchair. We want to see more of Amanda, less robot. So I was able to walk in Budapest, Hungary, and present this, and then also in Aspen, Colorado. For the first time, we're able to now weave in personality and individuality into what is functional. Sometimes we get so caught up and wrapped up in the gee whiz factor of technology, we forget about sexiness and sensuality and design and the humanism. So that's where this is going. That's where the technology is. And as this technology becomes more prevalent in today's world, we'll be able to use this for daily living. It's on our horizon. So let me just give you some quick facts before I wrap up. There's more than 1 billion people in this world that has a disability. That represents more than 15% of the global population. 190 million people have a severe disability, meaning paralysis of some kind, quadriplegia, some type of mental illness or blindness. And the percentage of those individuals that then need assistive devices increases rapidly. So let's bring it back to our country. I represent 1 in 50 in the United States that is paralyzed. So if we're looking in this room, that's about 20 people in this room. 1 in 50. 6 million people are paralyzed in the United States. 1.3 million have a spinal cord injury. 1.6, the greater population, have sustained a stroke. So with spinal cord injuries, neurological disorders, strokes, that expands the market for assistive devices. And this technology, it's here. We need to make it accessible. We need to make it available. It was Christopher Reeves that said, nothing of any consequence will come to fruition unless the idea is adopted. It begins with one individual, and that individual shares with others until it becomes a movement. And I've created the Bridging Bionics Foundation so that it can become the spark behind a new movement to get people up and walking again. So often we think of, well, what do we have right here, right now? And we ask, why? I encourage you to dream and to ask, why not? When you leave this room, you leave with every step that has intention behind it. With every step, and you walk with pride. And for those that cannot, and you think of that acronym for WALK, W-A-L-K, wisdom, attitude, and loving kindness. Because we look at our healthcare as a whole. It's not just in parts. When we can harmoniously blend our mind, our thoughts, our spirit with our physicality and have that spill towards happiness and optimal health, then we're living. Without our health, we have nothing. Prepare yourselves. Plan for the future. Be active co-creators of your health. If I can do it, you can too. Thank you. It's been a pleasure and a privilege. Thank you. Come on up. Thank you. Thank you.
Did you decide whether you wanted to sit or stand for the next
You know what,
part
I'm
of
going
the
to stand. I'm going to actually turn around, take a few steps back,
Okay.
so that, Angie, I might have you hold this just for a second. I'm going to turn around, and I'll just take a couple of steps backwards. That way you can get to see the back of the robot. How's that? Okay, Michael, you can ask me any question.
I forgot to introduce myself. I'm sorry. I'm Michael Booth with the Colorado Health Foundation Policy Journal Health Elevations. That's not important. It's important is that when I was at the Denver Post, I got to meet Amanda for the first time a few years ago when she walked into a room at Craig Hospital demonstrating this, and absolutely, as you can tell, just lighting up the whole room with that smile on her face. It's almost, the robot didn't matter. It was a smile that made the whole story. And then spend more time with her in Basalt again last year, just about this time, where we talked more about people recovering from spinal cord illnesses. So that's how we first met. So I'm mad at you about two things. One, all those ski turns that you showed on camera, they're better than basically anybody in this room, especially me. And two, that you can pronounce lumbosacral spinal cord in front of a big audience and not stumble over it. So, but I'll get over that. We talked about technology. You talked about people thinking of different uses for technology. Too often for all of us, technology means Siri getting you the Bronco score, or your running watch talking to your television and telling it to record Breaking Bad. You talk about technology that you've seen 20 years into the future because of the people that you work with and that you talk with.
Yes.
You've mentioned things that are very intriguing, such as a snakeskin suit, which I want to hear more about. But talk about any of that and what will we be seeing in 20 years in terms of mobility?
Okay, so I went into, that's a really good question. I went into Washington, D.C. and into the Smithsonian, and again, power of intentionality, you watch, it'll happen. Amanda Boxtel is going to walk in to that Smithsonian in a snakeskin outfit that is the undergarment of my future, and it's going to be sleek and sexy. And it's going to feed and bring life to my limbs. And I'll be looking at this robot that I'm wearing today and say, I walked in that. And that'll be, I think, really soon, within the next decade or 2 decades, where it's going, and this is what we're thinking. When I spoke for the Aspen Ideas Festival, I was able to throw out, well, what is your next big idea, Amanda? And so my next big idea with Scott Summit from 3D Systems was to be able to bring to life this snakeskin idea. Let's learn from nature. Nature's already figured it out. A snake has been able to figure out how to move without limbs. It's sleek, sensual, beautiful with those scales. And why can't we have scales that we can don underneath our clothing? And those scales could, in fact, be 3D printed. They could look really sexy and exotic, kind of like this dress here. But let's take it a step further so that it is really 3D printed. This is a 3D printed outfit, and it moves just like a dress might, and it moves in the breeze. It's beautiful and with the body. But then let's incorporate intelligence into those cells so that every 3D printed cell brings life to the musculature. And kind of like the swarm theory, they all begin to work together. I know you're probably thinking, this girl's really way out here. But people and futurists talk about the swarm theory. And we can incorporate that Mother Nature into technology and nanotechnology. And that's where Amanda Boxtel thinks that the future's going. And so the beautiful artists and designers from 3D Systems printed up a rendering of Amanda's thoughts, and that's what we have right here. So that's one concept for the future. Way out, yes. Achievable? I think it might be possible.
So you ski beautifully, obviously. You paraglide. You kayak. You've got some serious guns going right there that everybody can notice. So you're very fit. Why is it important to be standing upright? What is it about that has made you pursue this for so long?
Can I invite you over to give me a heart-to-heart hug?
Yes.
Come here. Thank you. Well, that in itself, a hug, Michael, is, and heart-to-heart. When I sit in my wheelchair, there's a disconnect that happens. And I'm always looking up. So I invite everybody really quickly, because we're going to run out of time. Every second person, stand up in the room, please. Let's do it. Come on. Every second person at the table, stand up in the room. Okay. Every second. Now, stand and turn to the person that's sitting next to you, shake their hand, and have a little conversation. All right. Okay, thank you. Take a seat. So what did you notice? For those that were sitting, what was your perspective? Belly buttons. Nostrils. Yes? Navels and nostrils. That's my perspective. For those that are standing, what's your perspective? Right, so you get it. So yes, there's a huge psychological factor of interacting eye to eye. And that's the biggest, I guess, motivator for me to stand up, is to have this sense of euphoria. But also, yes, I'm feeling the tallness of my body, Michael. And then I feel the therapeutic benefits, which is just a huge bonus.
Thank you. So we also have some very practical questions from, say, our table, for example. How much does this weigh? What's it like to lug around? Angie's here to help with that. Sometimes you're doing it. So I've seen you get out the wrench, get out the screwdriver, and just go at it with the mechanical side of it. So tell us a little bit about the practical side.
Sure. This is an EXO, and it weighs 45 pounds. So, but I don't feel the weight of it. So it's standing me up in perfect biomechanical alignment, and just think of the tables or the legs of a chair. They're not feeling the weight of the table. It's dispersed down into the ground. So the weight of this robot is dispersed down into the ground, so I don't feel the weight. It's a robot. It's powered up right now. If we unpowered it, don't do it, Angie, please, I'd collapse to the floor. So we don't want to hit the red button on the back. That's off limits. Angie is my physical therapist, Angie Hanula. I think she deserves a huge applause. And this device, it doesn't have a fall prevention mechanism built into it yet. So Angie is my fall prevention mechanism. And so just in case it would be ugly, I need Angie all the time, and we're a team, and she gives me confidence. So it's a beautiful relationship. I'm very grateful. This is just one of the devices out on the market. There's several others. There's a Rewalk from Israel that has had its FDA approval for in-home use. We have coming out in a couple of years, next year, and then in 2 years for home use, the Vanderbilt Parker Hannifin Indigo. And I've walked in that, so I can speak from experience. And next I'm going to go to Houston and try the Neural Rex, which is the thought-activated Rex bionic exoskeleton suit. So I can really speak from experience and think it. So that's a long-winded answer.
No, that's exactly what we wanted to hear. So you also get a question often, because I asked you the same question very soon after we met, in terms of affordability. And how does this fit into the overall healthcare picture? How will it change over the next few years? We're hoping that things will get cheaper, that as they get better, they can also get cheaper with microchips and other things. But tell us about the affordability of this unit and where you see that going.
Well, this unit at the moment is, the market value is around $150,000. And so I was the first person in the United States to own my own device, and now I'm using it for the foundation to bring it to other communities. The prices are getting lower. For a rewalk, we're looking at, I think, between $60,000 and $70,000. And so there's different, it's still expensive. It's still not affordable for every person. Yes, I'm a good fundraiser. So, but it's becoming more prevalent. And often people ask me that question, Michael, and what I throw back to people is to say, well, really, how much does an arm and a leg cost in the grand scheme of quality of life? And when you look at prosthetic limbs, I've got someone who walks around in our community who has 3 prosthetic limbs. He's a double amputee and is missing one arm and then fingers as well. And he is walking around on $145,000 worth of limbs. That's one person. This technology is a rehabilitation tool. It's a gait training tool for neuro rehab. It can get an entire community of individuals up and walking. At the Peak Center at Craig Hospital, they have not just the Exo from Exobonics, they have the Indigo that's on trial from Vanderbilt and Parker Hannafin. So these devices are available, and as I mentioned, there's validity to high dosage stepping and locomotor training, because we can relearn to walk again.
So my last question will be about going back to some of the things that this group is going to have to be doing over the next few months in terms of balancing optimism, which, as I said, you bring in by the truckload, with realism about some things that won't work or didn't work. You talked about being a stem cell tourist and trying different things that didn't always work as advertised. Other people in your situation have done that as well and found that it didn't help them very much. And yet you continue to try new things and continue to sort of go after it. So talk about how you balance those things in your own life.
Remember I mentioned that dance, it's walking on the fine line between acceptance and hope. And I choose to walk on that fine line. And sometimes my hope, for many years, I took hope completely out of my vocabulary. And it wasn't until I witnessed the reawakening of my body with stem cells that hope became real. It wasn't this false hope, but it was a real, tangible hope. My hope rests in technology. And I think with regenerative medicine becoming more prevalent with stem cells, autologous stem cells, adult stem cells, there's hope. But it has to walk a parallel to bionic technology. And so that's where my hope lies. I think it's important. Hope is like the oxygen in every breath that I take. It has to be there. But my acceptance has to be there. I accept this moment right here, right now. And so, yes, I'm an eternal optimist, but I'm a realist too. I take chances, but they're calculated. I think about it and I listen to my intuition. Does that work for everybody? No. Do I recommend it? No. Some of us are a lot more conservative and prefer to sit back and wait. But I don't mind being a role model, an R-O-L-E and an R-O-L-L, to show what's out there so that I can have the best quality of life possible. I'm bionic on the inside too. I have a vocab bladder implant, and I was one of just a handful of individuals that had an implant with electrodes that attached to the S3 nerve root. with a device and an external controller that helps me pee. And it helps with my digestion. And so it's real. It's helped me live the best quality of life possible. And I'm going to keep being in pursuit of that no matter what. So did that answer? Okay.
Yeah. Before we thank Amanda for being with us today, I just want to put in one more plug. I hope her talk has inspired all of you to think about your own stories and share them at the video storytelling booth in Crested Butte room. It's really important that we get as many individual stories as we can because they add up to one great thing. So please do that. Amanda, thank you so much for spending your time with us. We loved it.
Thank you. Thank you.